That afternoon I was back at the ranch. Max was still at the clinic recovering well. I was pacing my porch trying to think of what else I could do to protect my home and reputation. That's when I noticed something strange. A white sedan was parked just down the hill from the entrance. It hadn't been there earlier. I squinted. A man stepped out. He was dressed in khaki slacks and a blazer, holding a leather folder. He walked up my gravel path like he owned the place. "Can I help you?" I called. "Are you Ms. Parker?" "Yes. I'm James Fulton, legal representative for the Oak Ridge HOA. I raised an eyebrow. "I'm not part of the HOA. He smiled stiffly. "I understand. However, the association has some concerns." He opened the folder and pulled out a letter. "The HOA is filing an emergency petition to have your dog declared a public hazard. They are also seeking an injunction to prevent you from keeping animals larger than 25 pounds on the property." I stared at him. "You're joking." "I'm afraid not. Ms. Richards." "You mean Karen?" He nodded. "Ms. Richards claims repeated harassment and unsafe conditions created by your service animal." I laughed bitterly. "You're trying to ban my medical dog from my own ranch. The HOA believes it's in the neighborhood's best interest." "This isn't your neighborhood," I snapped. "This land has never been under HOA rule. You all are trying to annex me by force." His face didn't change. "We'll see what the judge says." He left the papers on the gate and walked off. I stood there in silence. My heart thudded with anger. Not only had Karen hurt my dog, she was now trying to erase him altogether. But I wasn't helpless. I picked up my phone, scrolled through my contacts, and tapped the name at the very bottom. "Colonel Decker, retired." He answered on the second ring. "Parker," he said. "Heard about what happened. Want me to make a few calls?" "Colonel, I don't just need a few calls. I need backup." He chuckled. "You always did fight clean, but hard. I'll be at the ranch tomorrow, and I'll bring some friends." When I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt since this mess began. Control. I didn't join the military to run from bullies, and I wasn't about to start now. But before I could even finish my thoughts, a knock echoed from the back of the house. Not the front gate, not the driveway, the back porch. I grabbed my bat and stepped out. And there she was, Karen, smiling like a Cheshire cat. "Thought I'd come by and offer you a deal," she said sweetly, like she hadn't nearly blinded Max the day before. "Get off my property." Now," she said, holding up a folded document. "I'm willing to drop the injunction if you agree to move Max permanently off-site, say, to a kennel." "You're threatening me," I said, stepping closer. "You trespass, you attack my dog, and now you bribe me?" "It's not a bribe," she whispered. "It's a warning. Things could get harder for you if you keep resisting." I stared at her. "You need to leave." She took a step forward. "Make me." That's when I raised my voice. "Camera on. Start recording." A small click from the porch light confirmed the motion sensor kicked in, the same light that activated the hidden 4K camera I had installed last week. Karen's face twitched, then she ran, and I let her go, because I had what I needed. But just when I thought that day couldn't get any worse, my phone buzzed again. It was the clinic. Max had suffered a setback. His right eye was swelling again. They needed to sedate him for a deeper flush and anti-inflammatory treatment. I drove like a maniac. Inside the clinic, the vet looked grim. "We'll do our best," she promised. "But if the eye doesn't respond soon, we may need to remove it." My knees nearly buckled. Not Max, not his eye, not after all he'd done for me. I sat beside him again. He lay still, tail weakly tapping, drugged and tired. "Hang in there, buddy," I whispered. And then I remembered Karen's smirk, her threat, her deal, and her warning. I pulled out my phone and uploaded the porch camera footage of her offer to a private lawyer forum. I wasn't playing defense anymore. I was going on the offensive. Because Karen didn't just mess with my dog, she messed with the soldier's best friend, and I would tear her down. Legally, publicly, completely, before this was over. The next day started with a knock that nearly made my heart stop. I wasn't expecting anyone. Not yet. Colonel Decker wasn't due till noon, and I wasn't in the mood for another unannounced HOA visit. But when I opened the door, I was greeted by 3 men in dark suits and 1 woman in a gray pencil skirt. Good morning, Ms. Parker, the woman said smoothly. I'm Agent Wallace. These are my colleagues from the Department of Justice, Disability Rights Division. I blinked. Excuse me? We received a flagged report from several advocacy organizations, she continued, and your video footage was forwarded directly to our office. I stood there, stunned. We take allegations of abuse against service animals very seriously, especially when those animals are part of prescribed medical treatment. We'd like to walk your property, verify some information, and, if you're comfortable, interview your veterinary team. Absolutely, I said, stepping aside. Come in. I've got everything documented. As they walked in and began assessing the footage setup, the signage, the security system, I felt a wave of something I hadn't felt in weeks: relief. Finally, someone was listening, but Karen wasn't done yet. Around 11:30 a.m., I heard tires crunching up the gravel driveway. This time it wasn't federal agents, it was her. She pulled up in her usual spotless SUV and out she stepped, high heels sinking into the dirt, clipboard in hand, and a fake smile pasted on her face. She was holding another letter. I stepped onto the porch, arms crossed. You're really not afraid of going to jail, are you? Karen waved the paper like she was swatting a fly. Ms. Parker, I've brought you an amended HOA compliance violation. According to our latest vote, your fencing color is now classified as disruptive. I almost laughed. You're citing me for paint? Karen didn't flinch. Also, we believe your presence and that animal's history constitute a threat to community morale. We're pursuing an emergency board vote to have you removed. Removed from my own land? I scoffed. You people are nuts. You're not part of this community, she sneered. You never were. Before I could respond, Agent Wallace stepped out behind me. Is there a reason you're trespassing on federal investigative property? Karen's face froze. I didn't know. Ma'am, your actions are now part of a pending case under the Americans with Disabilities Act. I suggest you leave immediately. Karen turned ghost white. She fumbled her clipboard, dropped it, then scrambled back into her SUV. She peeled off down the dirt road so fast she kicked up a wall of dust. Wallace turned to me. You weren't exaggerating. No, I said, shaking my head. This has been going on for weeks. We'll handle this legally, she said firmly. In the meantime, don't let her intimidate you, and document everything. After the agents left, I got a text from the clinic. Max was out of sedation. The swelling had gone down. The vet said if things continued improving, he might get to come home in a few days. I needed that good news. I clung to it. That afternoon, just as I was trying to settle my nerves, Colonel Decker's Jeep roared up the hill. He got out with 3 more men, all military retirees. You got a pest problem? He said with a grin. Yeah, I said, one with too much makeup and not enough sense. We got to work. Decker brought in motion-triggered floodlights, a higher-end camera system, and even old-school perimeter alarms, tiny devices that ring a small bell if anyone walks past them. Not that it'll stop her, he muttered, but it'll record her, and that's the key. By sundown, my ranch looked like Fort Knox. That night, I sat on the porch, sipping tea, watching the gate. It was quiet, until about 2 a.m. That's when I heard it. Crunch, crunch. Slow, deliberate footsteps through the brush near the side fence. I didn't move. I just reached for the remote. Click. The motion lights blazed on, and there she was, Karen. She froze like a deer in headlights, dressed in all black like she thought she was invisible. She was holding something in her hand, what looked like a chain cutter. She was trying to sabotage my gate. I didn't shout. I didn't warn her. I let the cameras roll. Then I dialed the sheriff. By the time the flashing red and blue lights hit the driveway, Karen was trying to flee, but the perimeter alarm tripped and gave her away. The deputies caught her stumbling into a cactus patch. She was screaming, "Let me go! This is harassment! I own this road! I was protecting the neighborhood!" The officer calmly handcuffed her. "You're trespassing. Again. And this time with tools to damage property. That's attempted vandalism, Karen." She was stuffed into the squad car, crying, makeup smeared, yelling about lawsuits and conspiracies. I just waved goodbye. But even as the car disappeared into the night, I knew something deep down. Karen wasn't going to stop. Because the next morning, her son showed up. Right at my front gate. He wasn't angry. He was smiling, holding a document. "You've been served," he said. "My mother is filing a restraining order against your dog." "A restraining order? Against my dog?" I stared at Karen's son, Jake, still gripping the envelope he handed me through the gate like it was a bomb. I didn't say a word. I just opened it. The document was real, stamped, signed by a judge, filed under emergency motion. Jake stood there, arms folded. "I'm just the messenger, but my mom said she's not backing down. She says either the dog goes, or you do." I narrowed my eyes. "And what do you say, Jake?" He paused. "I think my mom's losing it," he muttered. "But she's obsessed, and if you fight her, she'll go even harder. She doesn't care about the law. She cares about winning. Just be careful." And then he walked away, head low, shoulders heavy. I should have felt angry, but I felt tired. Max was still at the clinic, fighting for his vision. And here I was, fighting a woman who had somehow manipulated the legal system into putting my medical dog on notice. But I wasn't going down without a fight. I called my lawyer, Greg Fulton, a sharp, no-nonsense guy who had served 2 tours before passing the bar. The moment I told him about the restraining order, he was silent for 3 seconds, then burst out laughing. "A restraining order? For a dog that hasn't moved off your porch?" he said. "This is the kind of stuff judges hate. I'll file a motion to quash first thing in the morning." "Thanks, Greg," I said, sighing. "Don't thank me yet. Karen's playing dirty. Expect her next move to be even lower." He wasn't wrong. By noon the next day, the sheriff showed up again, this time with a court clerk and a notice pinned to a clipboard. They were there to do a property inspection. "What's this about?" I asked, already dreading the answer. The clerk glanced awkwardly at the paper. "Ms. Richards filed a formal nuisance claim. She says you're creating unsafe conditions with your animal training facility." I blinked. "I don't have an animal training facility. She submitted drone footage and alleged you're running illegal operations out here." My blood went cold. Drone? I followed the sheriff to the west side of the property, and sure enough, there was a small, downed quadcopter tangled in the mesquite trees. Karen had flown a drone over my land trying to fabricate some wild claim. Greg called it digital trespassing and sent a cease and desist. But I was done waiting. That night, I hosted a meeting, right on my porch. Decker, Paula, 2 more neighbors, and even Jake showed up.